This is a most anticipated chapter, I should say. Right? So here we go. The fourth stage of human unfoldment, of sensual man to spiritual man, is the high stage of cosmic consciousness. This stage is as far ahead of the genius stage as the genius is ahead of the barbarian. It is difficult for those who have not yet reached the genius stage to comprehend that stage, but it is possible for everyone to recognize that it is existent because the works of the great cosmic geniuses are evident everywhere. Everyone knows that there really are superhuman people like Michelangelo, Brahms, or Mozart, even though they know that they themselves are not like them. Likewise, there have been about 100 great geniuses whose works are so conspicuously in evidence that there is no question that a much higher state of mentality is possible than the average mentality. The state of cosmic consciousness was first referred to in India as the Brahmic bliss. It was also referred to as nirvana, meaning the ultimate goal of mankind in which all identity is lost in the universal identity. The New Testament referred to it as being in the Spirit and as the anointing. It is also referred to as the state of ecstasy. Cosmic consciousness is so rare, however, that there have probably not been more than 15 completely illumined examples in all history. By that I mean those who have had the experience of complete severance of sensation from consciousness, followed by long periods, rather than those who had but momentary flashes and found themselves in a state of some confusion. Dr. Richard Maurice Buck is the greatest authority upon cosmic consciousness. His own personal illumination lasted but a few seconds, but so completely transformed him that he devoted the rest of his life to the study of other cases, and in writing a book which is of inestimable value to those who are seeking to awaken their own spiritual awareness. The symptoms he describes will enable one to recognize those symptoms of awakening genius or cosmic consciousness which they may have experienced but do not comprehend. Dr. Buck lists about 40 cases and erringly includes Jesus among these. Jesus is the only one who has ever reached the highest stage of divine awareness, Christ consciousness, which will be described next. Cosmic consciousness utterly transformed those who have already reached a high stage of the genius into an incredible greater stage of spiritual mind existence. Some of these cases have actually bridged to genius stage or passed through it without knowing it. When cosmic consciousness consumes one with illumination of soul mind, it comes very suddenly, without any warning whatsoever, and without being suspected. There are no indications of it, nor can it be induced by anybody, no matter how familiar one becomes with its reality. Full and sudden cosmic illumination is attended with a flash of cosmic light which is invisible to everyone except the recipient of it. The New Testament describes Paul's spiritual illumination into cosmic consciousness. He became as one transformed. He was transformed because from that moment he was as different a mentality as the mentality of a full grown man exceeds the mentality of a child. What happens is that the doors to the kingdom of heaven seem to open suddenly, and all the glory of God's light of all knowledge and all power become revealed. The recipient becomes transformed with knowledge of his absolute unity with God. He at once begins to think with God and know his thoughts as being his own. He suddenly becomes fully aware that the voice which he first heard millions of years ago as instinct, then as intuition, then as inspiration, is God's voice and his own as one. There is no longer any mystery about it, no vagueness, no yearning to pierce the impenetrable. He has pierced it. He has found that center of stillness which his soul is. He can now knowingly say, I and my Father are one, for he has become that one. This is what is meant by revelations. It is knowledge which has been cosmically revealed. The explanation of the flash of light which accompanies all cases of complete cosmic consciousness is caused is caused by a short circuit that severs the two centers of sensation in the two lobes of the brain from the seat of consciousness. Such a flash occurs also at the instant of death. It has been photographed many times. One distinctive feature of cosmic consciousness is that everyone who experiences it states the same things. They all experience a tremendous state of ecstasy, which is the God nature, a deep conviction of love, and the oneness of God and man. And the idea of evil and death entirely disappears into their complete knowledge of immortality and eternal life. Whatever a cosmic conscious mystic writes is fully understood by any other mystic. No matter how different the words may be, their sense is universal. Their language is alike, but it is strange to all but those of high culture or great spiritual unfolding. For better understanding of these divine ones among men, I will quote characteristic sayings of the eight most highly illumined ones. The first known case is the writer of the Bhagavad Gita. No one knows who he was, but his immortal words have already outlived thousands of years and will endure as long as man endures. The following quotations sing their own glory in the unmistakable language of the divine mystic. Another sun gleams there, another moon, another light, not dusk, nor dawn, nor noon, which they who once behold return no more. They have attained my rest, life's utmost boon. Fain would I see as thou thyself declarest it, sovereign Lord, the likeness of thy form wholly revealed. O thou divinest one, if this can be, if I may bear the sight, make thyself visible, Lord of all prayers. Show me thy very self, eternal God. Behold, this is the universe. Look, what is live and dead, I gather all in one in me. Gaze as thy lips have said on God eternal, very God, see me, see what thou prayest. Thou canst not, nor with human eyes ever mayest. Therefore I give thee sense divine. Have other eyes, new light, and look, this is my glory, unveiled to mortal sight. Of many thousand mortals, one perchance striveth for truth, and of these few that strive, nay, and rise high, one only, here and there, knoweth me as I am, the very truth. For in this world being is twofold, the divided one, the undivided one. All things that live are the divided, that which sits apart, the undivided. Gautama, known as the Buddha, was the second known case of cosmic consciousness. He lived about 500 years before Jesus came, and his life has affected the Orient as deeply as the life of Jesus affected the Occident. He was the son of a very rich landowner and lived in great luxury at the time the supernatural light descended upon him. He left all this and his wife and son to live alone in the wilderness for a long time. He then began to teach men to seek eternal peace within themselves through much meditation, aloneness, and complete renunciation of worldly matters. Like all who are illumined, the Buddha gained all his real knowledge from within himself. He decreed the kind of so-called knowledge of the schools as superficial, if not useless. This point is well illustrated in his story of a youth who returned from school with much ego after 12 years of classical studies. The boy's father said to him, Svetakitu, as you are so conceited, considering yourself so well read, and so stern, my dear, have you ever asked for that instruction by which we hear that which cannot be heard, by which we perceive that which cannot be perceived, by which we know that which cannot be known? This quotation is proof that the Buddha passed through the genius stage without having known it, or if he did know it, no historian has ever understood that fact sufficiently to record it. Perhaps the essence of his experience is in the following words: that one, the self, though never stirring, is swifter than thought. The senses never reached it, it walked before them. Though standing still, it overtakes the others who are running. The moving spirit bestows power upon it. It stirs and it stirs not. It is far and likewise near. It is inside of all this and it is outside of all this. And he who beholds all beings in the self and the self in all beings, he never turns away from it. When to a man who understands the self has become all things, what sorrow, what trouble can there be to him who once beheld that unity? When the teachings of all mystics are thoroughly comprehended, there could be but one religion, for the teachings are one. There can be no fault in any religion which seeks to know God. The fault lies only in the inability of man to see God, know God, and be God. The human race must unfold in orderly stages. Comprehension will come to all men, but man himself can hasten it by deeply desiring it and by deeply seeking within himself for it through much meditation and wordless prayer. Plotinus and Mohammed were born into the world during the 12 centuries of Dark Ages. It is more than probable that Dante also was illuminate. It is claimed that he was, but I am not sufficiently convinced of that fact to include him. Plotinus was born in AD 204 and lived 70 years. He discarded all that is called scholarship, meaning that so called knowledge which the senses record upon human brains as memory impressions. It is important that the present generations of men should understand his exalted point of view, for the modern system of creating scholars is the superficial one of accumulating information concerning effects of motion upon the assumption that information is knowledge. In that sense, we have no scholars which have been school-made. If we have scholars, they are self-made. Plotinus uses the word appearances in the sense which we use the word information. I quote him: "Eternal objects present us only with appearances. Concerning them, therefore, we may be said to possess opinion rather than knowledge. Our question lies with the ideal reality that exists behind appearance. How does the mind perceive these ideals? Are they without us? And is the reason, like sensation, occupied with objects external to itself? What certainty would we then have? What assurance that our perception was infallible? The object perceived would be something different from the mind perceiving it. We should have then an image instead of reality. It would be monstrous to believe for a moment that the mind was unable to perceive ideal truth exactly as it is, and that we had not certainty and real knowledge concerning the world of intelligence. It follows, therefore, that this region of truth is not to be investigated as a thing external to us and so imperfectly known. It is within us. Here the objects we contemplate and that which contemplates are identical, both are thought. The subject can surely know an object different from itself. It is the agreement of the mind with itself. Consciousness, therefore, is the sole basis of certainty. The mind is its own witness. Reason sees in itself that which is above itself as its source, and again that which is below itself is still itself once more. How very different is this language to that which is familiar to our schools and scholars who applaud the brilliance of the student who can remember and repeat more events and incidents than another student. Observe also that Plotinus told man to seek truth within himself, as Jesus did. Consider the knowledge of Plotinus herein expressed. He is asked, how can we know the infinite? I answer, not by reason. It is the office of reason to distinguish and define. The infinite, therefore, cannot be ranked among its objects. You can only apprehend the infinite by a faculty superior to reason, by entering into a state in which you are your finite self no longer, in which the divine essence is communicated to you. This is ecstasy, or cosmic consciousness. It is the liberation of your mind from its finite consciousness. Muhammad is one of the great illumined. Three great religions grew out of the words of three great mystics. The religions are all different, but the words and teachings are the same. Muslimism is in practice totally different from either Christianity or Buddhism, but that is the fault of its practice, not of its principle. This could also be said about Christianity and Buddhism. Those who would compare the teachings of Muhammad, Jesus, and the Buddha would find not one whit of difference in essence. Also, if the words of all these three are compared with those of Francis Bacon, or Shakespeare, Walt Whitman, Jacob Boehme, Balzac, and John Yeats, they would all be the same in essence, even though the words differ. Muhammad used the words paradise in the same sense that Jesus used the word kingdom of God, and the Buddha used the word nirvana. Muhammad said, this is the day of eternity, enter into it in peace, which parallels the words of Jesus, the kingdom of God is within you. John Yeats said, God is always in man, and very commonly the soul is aware of his presence. It is as if he slept in the soul. If he wakes up only once a man's whole life, the experience of that moment affects the whole life. Another modern mystic who has transformed millions of lives and turned their eyes to the light is Baha'u'llah, the founder of a great religious movement known as the Baha'i Faith, although he was not listed in Dr. Buck's classic work as an illuminate. The unfolding of physical man to spiritual man always comes through the revelations of cosmic messenger, who have been illumined with higher knowledge by becoming holy mind for even a brief period, but always enough to transform the world through their own transformations. A study of the ascent of man will reveal that each upward step has been caused by the advent of a cosmic messenger who periodically appears among men with new knowledge which has been revealed to him for that purpose. It will also reveal the fact that when any man of higher knowledge and ideals than the average of his day comes into the world, he is persecuted, ridiculed, imprisoned, tortured, and even crucified by the uncomprehending multitudes. The greater the message and messenger, the greater the torture. These messengers who transform the world with new knowledge always meet with great personal suffering for their priceless gifts. The inventor, the pioneers in new ways and methods, the genius in the fine arts, or any man who dares to depart from traditional thinking, always meet with ridicule in various measures and forms until the value of his gift to the world is recognized. Jesus died on the cross, Leonardo died in poverty, Galileo was tortured, Copernicus was spurned and ridiculed, Bacon was forced to hide his identity in Shakespeare, Spinoza constantly feared arrest, Whitman was despised and his books banned, Mozart, Liszt, Chopin, and Schumann were harrowing entertainers for the rich. Even Goodyear in our day suffered untold agonies for his gift of vulcanized rubber, which revolutionized transportation. The many always oppress the few. It is difficult for love and for knowledge to come into this world. Crucifixion always awaits love. Knowledge is always launched upon the sea of ignorance. That is why the journey of man is so long, so hard, and so slow. And Baha'u'llah is an exemplification of this trait of human nature, for he was tortured and imprisoned in chains for years in a filthy black dungeon with thieves and murderers until he was near death. Many of his followers were imprisoned with him and executed, yet the cosmic ecstasy of an eternally happy man remained with him through his far greater sufferings than even a crucifixion. Baha'u'llah's writings and teachings are the same in essence as those of all other Illuminati. They vary only in their wording, but not in their meaning. Where Jesus uses the words within, Baha'u'llah uses the word insight. Both have the same meaning, however. In describing the revelations of mystics, he said, "Without words we speak, we communicate, we converse with God and hear the answer." It is universal in all mystics, too, as frankly say they talk with God as it is for the one to say he talked with another. No greater evidence of Baha'u'llah's great understanding of the God presence in man could be found than the following extract from his teachings. It is said that Moses in the wilderness heard the voice of God, but that wilderness, that holy land, was his own heart. All of us, when we attain to a true spiritual condition, can hear the voice of God speaking to us in that wilderness. Baha'u'llah thoroughly comprehended the permanently ecstatic state of God's mind to such an extent that nothing could affect his own eternal state of happiness and the contemplation of beauty and harmony which exists in all of God's creation. Even while suffering great agony of body in prison, he refused to deviate from the principle which he taught to the effect that nothing ill could happen to a man if he is happy. Take note of the fact that he said that while undergoing great physical suffering, he said, afflictions and troubles are due to the state of not being content with what God has ordained for you. If one submits himself to God, he is happy. By this he means that whatever may be your destiny while working with God, that you must submit to, for that is your glory. When asked where happiness comes from, he answered, because all existing things move according to my wish, therefore I do not do anything contrary to my desire, thus I have no sorrow. There is no doubt that all beings move by the will of God, and I have given up my own will, desiring the will of God. Thus my will becomes the will of God, for there is nothing of myself. All are moving by his will, yet they are moving by my will. In this case, I am very happy. The purity, the friendliness, and happiness of his teaching cannot but ennoble anyone who tries to fathom their depths. The Baha'i faith, which he founded, is without doctrine and completely tolerant of all religions and faiths, and expresses the desire for that day of unity when there will be but one religion. In all his teachings, tolerance for things which men do and say is conspicuous. His attitude is that man does not know what he is doing when he does evil things, for he is but on his way to knowing. That is the same attitude expressed by Jesus when he said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." He condemned nobody, even while expressing his regret that others teach or practice anything which was contrary to God's law, as he so plainly did admonishing of St. Paul for his disapproval of marriage and for prophesying that sex would arise which would be celibate. Baha'u'llah laid this fault down to superstition and ignorance of God's law. His tolerance extended to even his prophecies about the coming of other messengers who would come with new knowledge suited to their day and age, and specifically foretold of a scientific revelation. The Baha'i faith is worldwide, and its followers give evidence of the inspiring nature of its teachings by their exemplary lives and actions. All who have reached the cosmic conscious stage have attained full God awareness. They not only know God, but they unhesitatingly state their oneness with him. Jesus not only said, "I and my Father are one," but said that every man is one with him and with God when he knows that he is. All cosmic messengers have said the same thing, in essence, if not in the same words. The only difference between any man and Jesus, or the Buddha, or Shakespeare, or Paderewski, is divine awareness. Nothing else. Every cosmic conscious messenger very plainly tells you that, but few believe it because few comprehend it. Long ages of outward thinking have unfitted them for comprehending it. A very few years of inward meditative thinking will give you one greater God awareness than centuries of outward thinking. For another example of the similarity of cosmic thinking, or thinkers, compare these words of Jacob Boehm, or Beeman. I'm going to say it's Boehm, the same as we're familiar with. But spiritual knowledge cannot be communicated from one intellect to another, but must be sought for in the Spirit of God. With Walt Whitman, who says, wisdom is of the soul. It cannot be passed from one having it to another not having it. Bayman also wrote, the gate was open to me that in 1/4 of an hour I saw and knew more than if I had been many years together at a university. All of them are in full agreement that those who are illumined into cosmic consciousness are given a profound wisdom or knowledge of the very essence of God, which can never be acquired from books or schools or any outside source whatsoever. Likewise, all cosmic mystics have said in essence, God is love and I am love, that all men are one brotherhood, and also I am all men. Walt Whitman, Francis Bacon, Shakespeare, and Mary Baker Eddy are the three greatest mystics of the late centuries. Their works are fairly saturated with the idea of love, unity, brotherhood of man, and spiritual identity. Whitman says, and I know that the hand of God is the elder hand of my own, and I know that the Spirit of God is the eldest brother of my own, and that all men ever born are also my brothers, and the women my sisters and lovers, and that a kelson of creation is love. A kelson being a foundation upon which a ship is built. In describing the supernatural flash of light which always accompanies full illumination, Whitman says, as in a swoon, one instant, another sun, ineffable, full dazzles me, and all the orbs I knew, and brighter, unknown orbs, one instant of the future land, heaven's land. How much these words are like those in the Bhagavad Gita, written thousands of years ago. No words could more forcibly express the emptiness of the world of material values, which seems to be the first aim of those who have made this world what it is, than these of Whitman. Hast never come to thee an hour, a sudden gleam divine, precipitating, bursting all these bubbles, fashions wealth, these eager business aims, books, politics, arts, armors, to utter nothingness. Mary Baker Eddy was the only woman who has been known to have reached that spiritual stage of cosmic consciousness. With Walt Whitman, she was the most recent. Her name was not included in Dr. Buck's list of immortals who had arrived at that stage of cosmic consciousness, but it should have been. Miss Eddy's experienced her first cosmic illumination when she was 12 years old. She did not know what it meant at the time. No one who has that experience ever does at the time it happens, for it is so rare that few know about it. Also, it is entirely unanticipated. She describes it as follows, and a soft glow of ineffable joy came over me. She was in a fever at the time, and the fever suddenly disappeared. That is also characteristic of the transformation which takes place during an illumination. She also said that other incidents of extraordinary nature occurred at the time. This experience of cosmic illumination again occurred when she was 45. She was seriously ill at the time, but again she was restored to normalcy during that short period of ecstasy which always accompanies the illumination. As in all other cases of cosmic consciousness, she was given the knowledge that all mind is one, which she calls divine mind, that the body is not the person, that there is no life, truth, or intelligence in matter, and that there is no evil nor death in nature. Such revelations, coming under such conditions, are full and complete evidence of her cosmic illumination. Further evidence of it lies in the words and manner of her teachings, which she imparted to others. She very clearly denied that sin existed in nature and explained it as a belief in man's mortal mind, meaning the senses. She also taught that all cosmic illuminates know that Jesus came to save mankind from a belief in sin and not that he came to save man from sin. She called world attention to the fact that Jesus never used the word sin with the connotation of evil which men give to it. Jesus used the word in the sense of experience, as he used it in the case of the man with palsy, to whom he said, "Son, be of good cheer, thy sins be forgiven thee." Massetti also firmly states that God, the Creator, created only that which was good, and that truth and goodness are one. Therefore, nothing real could be existent which is not good and manifests truth in him. Nothing is more convincing evidence of her right to be included in the very immortals who have been illumined with the light of God's mind than the following extracts from her teaching. Man is not a material habitation of the soul. He is himself spiritual. Man is idea, the image of love. He is not physique. Man is the reflection of God or mind, and therefore is eternal, that which has no separate mind from God, that which has not a single quality underived from deity, that which possesses no life, intelligence, nor creative power of his own, but reflects spiritually all that belongs to his Maker. Man is incapable of sin, sickness, and death. Such cosmic knowledge does not come from earthly teachings. They are not in any of man's books, nor were they taught to her by the church which she attended. Cosmic knowledge comes to earth only through divine messengers who have known the oneness with one mind of this universe, with the one mind of this universe. Such knowledge comes only to one in billions of humans. Mary Baker Eddy may never have heard of cosmic consciousness, so rare it is, but she frankly declared that I won my way to absolute conclusions through divine revelations, reason, and demonstration. That is what cosmic consciousness is. My husband's entire scientific knowledge came that way. In May of 1921, he had no knowledge whatsoever of astronomy, chemistry, mathematics, electricity, nor the construction of matter. He did not care to know them, for his desires were in the fine arts. In one timeless flash, he became master of all the sciences and knew as much in that one flash as he knows now. In 1926, he gave his first gift to the scientific world in the Russell charts of the elements, which completed the incomplete and incorrect Mendeleev's charts. In this first of many contributions, he charted and announced the existence of urium and uridium and the four other transuranium elements which made atomic fission possible, also deuterium and tritium, and other four hydrogen isotopes which made H-bomb and heavy water possible. The world does not know urium or uridium by these names, however, for many years later, when science verified their existence, they renamed these two elements plutonium and neptunium. His contributions since then have been many, but the cosmogony which God gave him is so unlike the traditionally accepted one that it may be many years before its value may be recognized. All that I have ever known was revealed to me cosmically in the same manner. I also did not receive the formal education of the schools. That is why our combined knowledge, forcibly presented, may enlighten enough of those who are ready for it to save the world in this 11th hour of its danger. Neither my husband's knowledge nor mine ever came from books or schools, however. It was cosmically inspired, Knowledge has never come into the world in any other way. Circumstances forced me into a great aloneness in my youth, and these were my rich years, my formative years, which finally culminated in my own illumining in two great periods. These two periods so utterly transformed me that a greater power of self expression came to me than I had ever known. I found that whatever I desired to do, I could do, and that is what you would find if you sought within yourself for knowledge and power as we have. It is important that I tell you some of the facts regarding the way we received all our knowledge in order that you may acquire cosmic knowledge if you so desire. All illuminates will tell you the same thing. Down through the ages, they have said that all knowledge could be obtained only from within, that the kingdom of heaven was within, that all else will be added unto him who seeks it from within. The whole purpose of this book is to point the way to all knowledge and power for you. To attain it, you have to acquire the power to think inwardly instead of to sense outwardly. Begin early in life to do that. Do not wait until tradition and materialism insulates your soul by building a wall around it. That is why I felt impelled to break away from the treadmill of tradition in my childhood. I was as certain of my destiny and purpose at 3 years of age as I am now. My education came from looking into the hearts of people of all the world and of nature. It was my good fortune to be able to travel extensively in Asia and Africa, as well as the English speaking continents. I made a great discovery in so doing, which will be helpful to you if you apply it. I found that greater knowing comes from the silences of what people do not say than from what they do say. It is that way in nature. The silences reach the soul with their deep meanings, while sounds must be translated from sensed awareness to mind intelligence. The silent words from the hearts of all men told me that all mankind is essentially good. All are seeking happiness and love. There is no evil in the search for love, so there can be no evil in a balanced universe which is all good. Our present day world is not conducive to the search for love. Its human relations are based upon outer sensing. When they are based upon inner thinking, our human relations basis must change, for mankind will then have learned that what he does to others he is doing to himself. A new language with its own meaning has come into the world from its illumined ones. The genius can hear nature's rhythms with his inner ears and see its spectrum harmonies with inner eyes. But the cosmic being can clearly comprehend the construction of matter and the workings of electric polarization as it divides and multiplies gravity into the contracted matter of suns and divides it to create space. In less time than it takes to write this description, one who knows nothing of the universe knows all of it. In that brief flash, he becomes master chemist and knows the stars of heaven beyond all men. The explanation of this fact is simple. When man's mind and God's become one, their thinking is one. They do not become synchronized as two, but are one. That which heretofore seemed to pulse within them separately pulses universally. The illuminate suddenly becomes in tune with the infinite. He instantly becomes the thinker and knower instead of being an extension of the thinker and knower. God's mind thins in octave thought waves. Every creative thought is electrically divided into octave thought waves, which require 4 efforts to create matter into living bodies and 4 more efforts to void those bodies. Every action and reaction in nature repeats this simple life death principle. There is no exception to it throughout the universe. Every incoming, outgoing breath repeats it, every sound repeats it, and the pulsing of the stars repeats it. Within that simple principle lies all knowledge, for in it is all cause which can be known and all effect which can be comprehended. Its simplicity is instantly recognized by the highly spiritual inward thinker who was enabled to strip it of its complexity by making it stand still and be only one instead of many billions in 1 second. To the cosmic thinker who can make the universe stand still and void time, creation unfolds from the soul of idea to create form. All forms are thought forms which appear, disappear, and reappear forever. When one sees forms unfold from seed and refold into seed, one sees all there is to see and to know. There is nothing else to know, for mind is the seed of creation, from which all forms unfold from zero of invisibility to become visible for a time before refolding into invisible mind. That is all there is to all philosophy, all sciences, and all mathematics. Certain great Illuminati, who no one has ever known, left messages in great stone pyramids for future man to decipher and to tell them of their existence long ages ago. These illumined ones knew astronomy and mathematics beyond perhaps even our day. They could not have acquired this knowledge from books, for there were no books or universities. The measurements of these pyramids proved that they not only could measure the diameter of the earth with great precision, but 100 other astronomical and mathematical measurements proved vast knowledge in other directions. They gave strong evidence of possessing an extrasensory perception such as our civilization has not yet attained. In one of these pyramids events 3,000 years ahead are accurately foretold. Knowing cause, these ancient mystics could deduce the effects which must follow. These few must have founded some brotherhood through which they kept their knowledge alive, for the same principles and measurements are repeated in part in Tibet and the civilizations which lie buried one upon another in the Andes in Central America. The conclusion, these men of great knowledge acquired their knowledge from somewhere other than universities and books, for there were neither universities nor books in their day. According to modern educational standards, all their vast knowledge would be denied them and considered of no avail because it was not acquired through the legitimate channels, which means through the senses. Today's intellectual world denies that knowledge can be spiritually acquired through revelation and inspiration, which means by talking to God. The lesson mankind should learn through the lives of the great men who have ever lived on this planet is that knowledge can only be acquired through the inner spirit of man and not through his body or through matter or through motion. Knowledge comes from within, not from without. The men who have been the world's most priceless treasures probably never attended school, or if they did, they were not counted as the most brilliant students. Whether or not such men as Bacon, Buddha, Beethoven, Leonardo, Jesus, Tennyson, or Schumann ever attended school, it is most certain that the great knowledge of these divine messengers gave to the world was not a part of any school curriculum. Their knowledge came from the spiritual fountains of themselves. They had found the kingdom of heaven, and all that heaven had to give was added unto them. The great lesson for each man to learn from the lives and works of these immortals is that each man's own immortality can be found only by inner thinking and deep meditation and deep word of spiritual prayer from the heart and not from the lips. The only way the silent voice can become audible to man is through inner ears. The only way man can vision God is through inner eyes. That is the only way man can knowingly work with God and God with man to produce enduring things. It is the only way that God, the Creator, can be manifested in man, the Creator. Likewise, the only way there can be a spiritual birth in the world is through spiritual thinking which establishes values based upon man rather than matter. The greatest motive for world crime lies in greed to obtain money. For this he sells his soul by crucifying love and human values. When man learns that man is man's greatest asset, he will serve his fellow man instead of killing him as he does now for material values. Crime will disappear when the motive for crime disappears, and peace will come when love appears. Absolutely beautiful. All right, move on to Christ consciousness, which should be equally as incredible very soon. Thank you.